podcast where truth moves faster than a Holstein calf. No waiting on some pretty page. We're charting new ground in the digital age. From genomic codes to roll-out facts, we cut through the noise, no holding back. Not your daddy's dairy news tonight. We're sparking debates with every insight. The ring's not where the real fight's at. It's in the data, in the channel chat. From pasture to processor to your morning cup, we're raising the stakes. Try and get ahead of herd. Yeah! Where the future's more than just a word. Ahead of herd. Come on! The Bullvine's calling, let your voice be heard.
Welcome to the Bullvine podcast, where we challenge conventional dairy industry wisdom and deliver the insights that matter most to your bottom line. I'm your host, bringing you another episode of fearless dairy journalism that cuts through the industry noise to reveal what's really happening in dairy operations worldwide. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most controversial topics in modern dairy management: mastitis treatment costs. What if I told you that the mastitis protocols your veterinarian recommends might actually be costing you more money than the disease itself? That's not just a provocative statement. It's a documented reality backed by research from Michigan State University, Norwegian National Dairy Programs, and comprehensive studies across 69 research publications. We're about to explore how progressive farms are slashing mastitis treatment costs by 60% while achieving better outcomes than conventional protocols. This episode reveals the $2.3 billion industry secret that's reshaping dairy economics. You'll discover why 90% of clinical mastitis cases receive antibiotic treatment when only 30% actually benefit from it, how Norwegian dairy operations reduced mastitis costs from 9.2% to just 1.7% of milk price, and why alternative treatments are delivering equivalent cure rates with dramatically reduced milk withdrawal periods. Whether you're managing 100 cows or 1,000, the evidence-based strategies we're discussing today could save your operation $50,000 or more annually. So grab your coffee, and let's challenge some assumptions about mastitis management that might be quietly draining your profitability. This is the Bullvine Podcast, where dairy truth meets dairy profit.
Welcome back to the Bullvine Podcast, the show that digs deep into the topics that matter most to dairy producers. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into something truly game-changing, I think. We're looking at a feature article from the Bullvine that's already sparking a lot of conversation and, frankly, challenging some long-held assumptions in dairy management.
That's right. Our mission today is, well, to unpack a really startling premise. What if the very treatments you're faithfully applying for mastitis are actually costing you more money than the disease itself? It sounds provocative, maybe even counterintuitive, especially when we're used to relying on established veterinary protocols. But the insights from this article are genuinely eye-opening. They point to a path where farms are cutting their mastitis treatment costs by a staggering 60%.
60%, wow.
Yeah, leading to annual savings of $50,000 or more.
$50,000 annually.
Yeah.
That's not just a number, is it? I mean, for any dairy operation, whether you're a small family farm or, a large commercial facility, that's a fundamental shift in profitability. It suggests we're not talking about small incremental tweaks here. It's more like a complete reevaluation of how we approach udder health. Mm-hmm. And when you consider that mastitis is estimated to cause over $32 billion in losses globally each year, I mean, this isn't just about individual farm economics. It's about a massive industry-wide financial drain.
It really is. A huge drain.
So if there's a better, more cost-effective way to manage it, we absolutely need to explore it.
And that's exactly where the initial skepticism often comes in, isn't it?
Yeah, I can see that.
When you hear a claim like your current mastitis protocol is costing you tens of thousands a year, it's natural to think, wait a minute, I trust my vet, I trust my practices.
Of course.
But the numbers presented in this article, they really compel us to look closer. We're talking about a global market for bovine mastitis treatment that hovers around $1.67 billion to maybe $2.66 billion annually.
Okay.
Now, that's a significant amount of money circulating within the treatment market itself.
It is, but as you highlighted, that figure pales in comparison to the $32 billion worldwide loss from the disease itself.
Exactly. That huge disparity, that yawning gap between what we spend on treatment and what the disease actually costs us, that's what immediately signals a fundamental inefficiency in our current approach.
Right. It's like pouring water into a leaky bucket. A lot of effort, a lot of expense, but the problem just keeps going.
Precisely. And what's fascinating here is how directly this connects to your farm's bottom line, your actual profit. With Class 3 milk prices, as of June 2025, sitting in the $18 to $19 per hundredweight range, I mean, every single dollar you can save on treatment costs or by eliminating milk discard goes straight into your profitability.
It's not theoretical at all.
No, it's a direct tangible impact on your take-home earnings. It's, the difference between maybe just breaking even and actually thriving.
That brings us directly to what the article provocatively calls the flawed logic of blanket treatment. It argues that many of our current somatic cell count, or SEC, management strategies are effectively bleeding profitability from dairy operations.
Bleeding profitability. That's a strong phrase.
It is. Think of it this way. Imagine you're managing a crop field. You wouldn't blindly apply expensive fertilizer to every single acre without first doing a soil test. Right?
No, of course not. That'd be crazy.
You wouldn't waste resources on areas that don't need it or apply the wrong type of nutrient. It just doesn't make sense.
And yet that's precisely what's happening with mastitis, according to the research highlighted here. We're often applying antibiotics universally or, using a one-size-fits-all approach.
Without really diagnosing anything specific.
Exactly. Without truly diagnosing the specific bacterial culprit or even confirming if bacteria are present at all. If your bulk tank SEC consistently runs above, say, 200,000 cells ml, the article suggests you're likely experiencing this economic hemorrhaging on a pretty significant scale.
And maybe not even realizing the full extent of it.
Right. You're pouring precious resources, time, labor, drugs, and crucially, lost milk into treatments that, well, they might not even be necessary or effective.
And the research findings back this up in a pretty shocking way, actually. Studies consistently show that somewhere between 90% and 100% of clinical mastitis cases get antibiotic treatment.
Which sounds like standard practice.
It does. But here's the kicker, the point that truly demands our attention. Only about 30% of those cases actually benefit from that antibiotic treatment.
Wait, say that again? Only 30%?
Yeah, about 30%.
So think about that for a moment. You are effectively treating 7 out of 10 cows unnecessarily with antibiotics.
7 out of 10, wow.
This is where the economic hemorrhaging becomes like a torrent, especially if your herd's SEC is consistently high. It's basically the equivalent of giving a potent, expensive drug for maybe a viral infection that will clear on its own.
Or worse, for something that isn't even an infection.
Exactly, for a condition that isn't even there. And the cost isn't just the drug, it's the whole ripple effect through your operation.
Right.
What's even more fascinating and frankly kind of sobering is understanding the true cost per case. The research shows this wide range, anywhere from maybe $120 up to as high as $444 per case.
$444 per case.
$444, that's a lot per case.
It is. And there's a frequently cited 2015 study pinpointing that $444 number specifically for cases occurring within the first 30 days of lactation.
And it's important to break down where that $444 actually comes from, right? It's not just the tube of antibiotic.
Not at all. It's this complex web of consequential costs.
So the primary components, according to the article, include an average of 31% from reduced milk production. That's the biggest chunk.
Lost milk.
Then another 23% from premature culling, cows leaving the herd too soon.
Which is a huge hidden cost, too.
Definitely. Then about 24% from veterinary and drug costs. That's the part we usually think of first.
Right, the direct expense.
A significant 18% from discarded milk, we'll come back to that, and about 4% from excess labor. So when you add all that up,
that $444 hit, especially during that critical early lactation period, when a cow's peak productivity is so important, it's just a devastating financial blow. It really erodes your margins.
And this leads us perfectly into what the article calls milk discard economics. And this is truly where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
It's a fundamental game changer in how we should be thinking about mastitis treatment. Research demonstrates that the cost of discarded milk represents a staggering 53% to 80% of your direct out-of-pocket treatment costs.
53 to 80%. Just the discarded milk.
Just the discarded milk. This creates what the article calls a powerful value inversion. The drug cost, which might be, around $17 for a conventional antibiotic?
Yeah, something like that.
It suddenly seems almost irrelevant when you compare it to the massive losses incurred from that discarded milk.
Okay, so what does that mean in practical terms for your operation for the listener?
Well, each unnecessary day of treatment where that milk has to be dumped costs approximately $65 in discarded milk alone. $65 a day?
Per cow, per day. Let's make that concrete. $65 in lost income is equivalent to losing about 3.5 pounds of milk at current Class 3 pricing.
Wow.
And this happens often because farmers tend to extend treatment for, say, 5 days, maybe even longer.
Based purely on how the milk looks. Is it still clumpy? Is it watery?
Exactly. They're waiting for it to look completely normal again.
And that's the trap, isn't it? That visual cue doesn't necessarily correlate with bacterial cure.
Not at all. The research shows that often the infection itself is cleared within maybe 2 to 3 days.
But the milk might still look abnormal for longer. Inflammation takes time to resolve.
Right. So if you're treating for 5 days when only 2 were truly needed, you're needlessly losing an additional $195 in discarded milk per case. Just poof, gone.
That's pure profit draining away for absolutely no clinical benefit.
None. This lost production, that discarded milk, that's where the real money is being hemorrhaged. It completely redefines where your focus needs to be in terms of cost control. So what does all this mean for you, the dairy producer listening today? We'd really encourage you to, consider your current protocols.
Yeah, take a hard look.
Are you extending treatments based purely on visual appearance? Are you factoring in the full cost of milk discard when you're making these treatment decisions?
It's often a hidden cost, isn't it? But as this deep dive is revealing, it's a massive one. You really can't afford to ignore it.
Okay, so if conventional practices are, bleeding profits and the economic reality is shifting, that leads us to the next big question. Why does one-size-fits-all treatment simply not work?
Right.
It's all about what the article calls pathogen reality and the evolving landscape of antibiotic resistance. Most farms, whether you're an 80-cow operation in Wisconsin, a 150-cow herd in Vermont, or a 2,000-cow facility in California, they tend to treat every case of mastitis pretty much identically.
Standard operating procedure, SOP.
Exactly. They follow a standard protocol, regardless of the underlying bacterial culprit.
And that's precisely the problem. The causative pathogen plays a critical, often overlooked role in treatment efficacy.
So it really matters which bug it is.
It absolutely matters. While pasture-based systems, like those often found in New Zealand, might see lower overall mastitis rates because of different environmental exposures.
Sure, different environment.
Housed dairy operations globally face very similar pathogen challenges regardless of their size or location. It's not really about the system size, it's about the bugs themselves and how they behave in the udder.
And this is where the research provides a really clear breakdown of why that uniform approach is costing operations thousands annually. It reveals the varying efficacy of antibiotics based on the type of pathogen involved.
What's fascinating here is understanding the distinct categories. For gram-positive infections, things like certain strep species, Streptococcus tuberous or Streptococcus dysgalactica.
The common ones.
Yeah, the common gram-positives. In those cases, antibiotics do accelerate the cure and provide a clear clinical benefit. The antibiotic is indeed an effective and necessary tool there.
Okay, so for those, treatment makes sense.
It does. However, for gram-negative infections, the picture changes dramatically. Pathogens like E. coli, they have a high spontaneous cure rate.
Meaning they often clear up on their own.
Exactly. Often exceeding 70% to 80%. This means the cow's own robust immune system can frequently clear the infection on its own within a few days.
Wow.
And antibiotics in these instances provide minimal, if any, additional benefit. They're often unnecessary.
But they still incur all the costs.
All the costs. The drug cost, and more significantly, that huge milk discard cost.
And then, perhaps most startling, are the culture-negative cases.
Right. These account for a significant portion, anywhere from 10% to maybe 40% of clinical mastitis cases.
10 to 40%.
Yeah.
That's a big range, but even 10% is significant.
It is, and in these instances, no bacteria are present at all.
So what causes the symptoms then?
It might be an inflammatory response to, say, physical trauma or something non-infectious entirely. In such scenarios, antibiotics are completely unnecessary. They offer zero clinical benefit.
So you're basically just throwing them away.
Pretty much, along with all the associated milk discard. This pathogen reality, understanding which bug, or if there's a bug, completely changes the economics of mastitis treatment.
It really does. It shifts it from a simple drug decision to a much more complex, data-driven one.
Which brings us to, well, a controversial reality, one that truly challenges conventional veterinary wisdom: the increasing prevalence of multi-drug-resistant isolates.
Ah, resistance.
Yeah.
The big one.
Yeah. The article cites a recent comprehensive analysis, looked at 69 studies published between 2013 and 2025.
So very current data.
Very current. And this vast body of research consistently found that multi-drug-resistant bacteria are increasingly identified in clinical mastitis cases.
Which means our standard drugs aren't working as well.
Exactly. Even more alarming, E. coli was found to show resistance to all tested antimicrobials in some studies.
All of them.
All of them. And significant resistance patterns were observed in Staphylococcus species as well. To put that into perspective, the article notes a concerning 52% penicillin resistance in streptococcal mastitis infections.
Half of them resistant to penicillin, one of our mainstays.
Right. What that means for your farm is that the conventional treatments we've relied on for decades are becoming increasingly ineffective.
Well, their costs, especially the discard costs, continue to rise.
Exactly. It's a losing battle on two fronts if we just stick to the old ways. It compromises both your immediate profitability and the long-term health, the treatability of your herd.
It feels like an unsustainable path, really.
It does. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, you can see why this is so critical, not just for individual farms, but for the entire dairy industry.
You mentioned the global perspective.
Yeah, think about European Union firms, for example. They've been essentially forced to adopt selective treatment approaches due to, well, stringent regulatory restrictions on antibiotic use.
Right, they've tightened things up considerably over there.
They have. And this has, in a way, created a kind of natural experiment in treatment economics. It offers invaluable insights for us, for U.S. dairy operations.
So we can learn from what they've had to do.
Definitely. They've had to adapt quickly. For instance, Norway. Norway has achieved the lowest use of antibiotics per kilogram of livestock biomass among 31 European countries.
The lowest. How low?
Well, to put that in perspective, consider the contrast. Sweden used almost 4 times more antibiotics per unit of product than Norway, Denmark 10 times more, Germany 30 times more, and Italy a staggering 100 times more than Norway.
100 times more? That's incredible.
It is, and it raises an incredibly important question for us. If Norway can achieve such remarkably low antibiotic use while maintaining excellent herd health and productivity, why can't we adapt similar principles here?
It makes you think, doesn't it? You have to consider the long-term implications for your own herd health and the broader dairy industry if antibiotic efficacy just keeps declining globally.
Absolutely. It's not just about today's costs. It's about preserving our ability to treat effectively in the future. It's about animal welfare, meeting potential market demands for responsibly produced dairy.
And just protecting our toolbox for tomorrow, really.
Exactly. Protecting the tools we have left.
So if current practices are, well, bleeding profits and facing these increasing resistance issues, what's the solution? Where do we go from here?
Right. This is where we shift focus to revolutionizing treatment, precision, alternatives, and proven models.
Okay.
The article really emphasizes what it calls a game-changing economic reality, and it's that concept we touched on earlier, the value inversion, where the milk discard costs become paramount, completely dwarfing the actual drug cost.
That shift in thinking.
That is the fundamental shift in mindset that needs to happen for producers.
Yeah.
We need to stop seeing the antibiotic itself as the main expense and start seeing the lost milk as the true financial drain.
Okay, so let's look at the real-world cost comparison the article provides, using that June 2025 milk pricing to really illustrate this point.
Perfect. For a conventional antibiotic treatment, you're typically looking at about a $17 drug cost, give or take.
Okay, $17.
But then you add in the $150 to $200 in milk discard costs over that typical 3.5 to 7 day withdrawal period.
Right, that long withhold.
Which brings your total cost per case to anywhere from $167 to $217.
That adds up fast across multiple cases.
It really does. Now, compare that to an alternative treatment. The article uses phytobomat as an example, which was analyzed in a pharmacoeconomic study.
Pharmacoeconomic. It's basically cost effectiveness.
Exactly. Analyzing the cost effectiveness of different drug treatments. This specific analysis showed a net cost saving of approximately €400 per mastitis case compared to conventional antibiotic therapy.
€4 saving. Okay, but why?
It's primarily driven by a dramatic reduction in milk rejection costs, and that's thanks to an incredibly short 24-hour withdrawal period for this alternative.
24 hours compared to 3.5 to 7 days.
Exactly. That massive difference in withdrawal period is where the huge savings come from. It translates into a net savings potential of $182 to $198 per case.
Per case. That's a huge potential saving.
It is. Let's illustrate this with a practical example that really brings it home for our listeners.
Okay, let's do that.
If you're running, say, 200 milking cows and you're experiencing average clinical mastitis rates, maybe 35 cases per 100 cows annually, that's pretty typical.
So about 70 cases in that herd each year.
Right. At a conservative $108 savings per case using these alternative protocols, that's $7,560 in immediate, tangible cost reduction annually.
$7,500. That's real money. That's not insignificant at all.
Not at all. That's enough to fund genomic testing on your entire replacement heifer population, for instance, which is another high-value investment in future herd health and productivity.
So it's a direct positive impact on your farm's profitability without adding a single cow or a single hour of extra labor.
Exactly. It really makes those abstract savings concrete, doesn't it?
It really does.
And speaking of alternatives, the article details some truly exciting breakthroughs in alternative treatments. And this directly contradicts that long-held pharmaceutical industry narrative that, only antibiotics work for mastitis.
Right, the idea that there are no other options.
Yeah. A comprehensive systematic review, again, those 69 studies from 2013 to 2025, directly addresses this. It's a huge body of evidence that we simply can't ignore anymore.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is the range of options that have emerged. It's not just one thing.
Not at all. This review found that phytotherapy, which is essentially the use of plant-based extracts and compounds, was the most extensively researched alternative approach.
Plant-based treatments. Right.
And it demonstrated significant effectiveness against a wide range of mastitis pathogens, including multi-drug-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, CONES, that's coagulase-negative staph.
Also common.
Very common. And even E. coli. Now, the article does mention some concerns, about potential degradation of active compounds in milk and maybe variability in natural product composition. That's fair.
Sure, consistency can be a challenge with natural products.
It can, but the overall effectiveness and promise are compelling. Beyond phytotherapy, bacteriophage therapy also showed promise.
Phages. Those are the viruses that eat bacteria, right?
That's right, often called bacteria eaters. Studies indicated effectiveness and, crucially, a low risk of inducing bacterial resistance, which is huge.
That is huge. But are they ready for prime time?
Well, many of these treatments still lack extensive in vivo validation, meaning they haven't been widely proven in live animals beyond lab settings just yet. So still some work to do there.
Okay. Well,
And then there are other novel antimicrobials mentioned, things like prisodium citrate, pheromonicin NM, and lactoferrin therapy. These showed statistically significant results.
and what's special about those?
What's particularly exciting is their effectiveness against biofilm formation.
Biofilms. Those slimy protective layers bacteria make.
Exactly. For our listeners, biofilms are basically these protective communities that bacteria form, often on surfaces like milking equipment or even inside the udder. They can make bacteria incredibly difficult for antibiotics to penetrate and eliminate.
So targeting biofilms is a major step forward.
It's a potential breakthrough for managing those really persistent chronic infections. This extensive research truly shows that we do have options beyond conventional antibiotics. The science is moving forward.
And what's really inspiring is that this isn't just theoretical research. There's a gold standard model that has already proven these concepts work on a national scale.
Right, the Norwegian national success story. It's a remarkable blueprint.
Tell us about that.
This was a holistic, data-driven initiative that ran from 1994 to 2007. It was integrated directly into their National Cattle Health Service. It wasn't just a few farms trying something new. It was a systemic change across the country.
Wow. A national effort. And the results.
The results from Norway are, well, nothing short of phenomenal. They provide real, tangible proof of concept. Over that period, they achieved an incredible 60% reduction in antibiotic treatments for mastitis.
60% reduction in antibiotic use. That's amazing.
It is. Their national average bulk tank SCC plummeted from 250,000 cells ml down to an impressive 114,000 cells ml.
Wow. Huge improvement in quality.
Huge. And most dramatically, their mastitis costs, measured as a percentage of the milk price, fell from 9.2% down to just 1.7%.
9.2% down to 1.7%.
Yeah. When you factor in the scale of their dairy industry, we're talking about billions in savings nationally. This wasn't some quick fix or a single magic bullet either.
So how did they do it? What were the key factors?
It was a comprehensive program attributed to several key things working together. First, a significant change in attitude, a shift towards prevention rather than just treatment. Farmers and vets really embraced proactive management.
A mindset shift.
Exactly. Second, they implemented a robust, data-driven management system using the Norwegian cattle herd recording system. This integrated individual animal health records with SEC data, allowing for really precise, evidence-based decisions.
Using data effectively.
Critically important. Third, there was a renewed, consistent focus on the fundamentals of prevention. Things like optimizing milking routines, ensuring impeccable hygiene, managing housing environments effectively. Back to basics, but done consistently well.
The foundational stuff.
Absolutely. And crucially, fourth, they implemented breeding for mastitis resistance as a key selection trait in their national breeding programs. This was a long-term genetic strategy to build more resilient cows.
So a multi-pronged approach.
Right.
Attitude, data, basics, and breeding.
Precisely. It's truly an integrated national approach that clearly paid off.
And when you translate that Norwegian success to your operation, the listener's farm, the numbers are just incredibly compelling.
They really are.
At current milk pricing of $18, $19 per hundredweight,
Right.
reducing mastitis costs from that 9.2% down to 1.7%, that represents a gain of $1.35 to $1.45 per hundredweight.
That's huge. Think about that on every hundredweight you ship.
It is huge.
Yeah.
It's equivalent to increasing your milk production by 7.5% without adding a single cow to your herd.
Wow. Say that again, 7.5% more milk, essentially.
Effectively, yes.
Yeah.
Imagine boosting your output that much without any additional overhead. No new facilities, no more feed to buy, no extra labor.
It really drives home the point that this isn't theoretical. It's a proven, adaptable model that directly impacts your potential earnings and your competitive edge.
It's essentially finding free milk in your existing herd just by managing mastitis more effectively and intelligently.
Exactly. Free milk. Who doesn't want that?
So with all this groundbreaking research and these proven success models like Norway, the natural question becomes, how do you actually implement this on your farm?
Right. Let's get practical. This takes us into the path forward, practical implementation, and the ROI of prevention.
And the article makes it clear, right, that this isn't just for the huge dairies.
Absolutely not. It emphasizes that this implementation strategy scales for operations of all sizes. Whether you're running 150 cows in Vermont or 1,500 in Idaho, the principles are adaptable.
That scalability is absolutely key. It means no one is too small or too large to benefit from these insights.
Definitely.
So let's talk about a practical precision treatment protocols implementation timeline. The article lays this out as roughly a 30 to 90 day roadmap for full protocol adoption. It gives you a clear pathway.
Absolutely. So month 1 focuses on building your diagnostic foundation. This involves installing on-farm culture capability.
Okay, the culture lab on the farm, what does that cost?
It's an investment of about $2,000 to $3,000, according to the article. This might seem like an upfront cost, but it's critical. It allows you to quickly identify the specific pathogen causing the mastitis.
Wait, know your enemy.
Exactly. Then, crucially, you need to train your staff on rapid pathogen differentiation. This isn't just about putting a machine in the office. It's about empowering your team to use it effectively and interpret the results.
Training is key.
Absolutely. The expected return on investment for this initial diagnostic investment is remarkably quick. The article suggests a payback period of just 2 to 3 months.
2 to 3 months ROI, that's fast.
It is, primarily through the immediate reduction in unnecessary antibiotic treatments and, of course, that costly discarded milk.
Okay, so that's month 1. What about months 2 and 3?
Months 2 and 3, you move into protocol standardization. This is where you implement minimum duration standards for treatment, regardless of how the milk looks visually.
Breaking that habit of treating based on appearance.
Precisely. Remember that point about farmers over-treating based on abnormal milk? This phase tackles that directly. Research consistently confirms that simply adhering to these minimum labeled treatment durations, say 2 or 3 days instead of 5 or more, could significantly reduce direct costs per case.
So trust the label duration, not just your eyes.
Right. Your daily evaluation focus shifts from that subjective visual appearance to confirmed bacterial cure based on your on-farm diagnostics or following the label. It's a crucial mindset shift.
Yeah.
Away from the looks better, therefore it's cured approach.
And looking further down the road, the article mentions the selective dry cow therapy revolution.
Yes, this typically takes place, say, from month 4 to month 12 as you get comfortable with the changes. This is about transforming your dry cow program, moving away from blanket antibiotic treatment for every single cow.
Which has been standard practice for decades.
It has. Moving instead to a truly selective, data-driven intervention. This is a big change for many operations, but the benefits, both economic and in terms of antimicrobial stewardship, are pretty undeniable.
So tell us more about how a farmer would actually implement that selective dry cow therapy protocol. What are the key steps?
The implementation protocol for selective dry cow therapy is clear and really hinges on a few critical steps. First, you establish SCC-based selection criteria.
Using cell count data.
Exactly. This means you only treat cows with antibiotics that are above a certain threshold, say 200,000 cells ml at dry-off, indicating a likely subclinical infection that needs clearing.
Okay, so target the high SCC cows.
Right. Second, and this is absolutely critical, non-negotiable for success, all the uninfected cows, those below your SCC threshold, still receive an internal teat sealant.
The sealant's key.
It provides a physical barrier, a non-antibiotic plug, preventing new infections from getting into the udder during that vulnerable dry period. You need that protection even without antibiotics.
Makes sense. What's the third step?
Third, you need a robust documentation system. You have to track outcomes, SCC results, clinical cases post-calving, and use that data to adjust your criteria over time if needed.
Continuous improvement based on data.
Exactly. And a meta-analysis of selective dry cow therapy trials found something incredibly important here. When internal teat sealants were used consistently, there was no difference in intramammary infection risk at calving between the selective therapy groups and the blanket therapy groups.
So no higher risk if you use the sealants properly.
Correct. However, there was an increased risk in cows assigned to selective protocols for trials that did not use internal teat sealants.
So the sealant really is the linchpin. You can't skip it.
It's absolutely crucial for maintaining mastitis prevention in a selective program.
That's such an important distinction. It really underscores that it's not about doing less, it's about doing smarter.
Precisely.
And the expected outcomes are pretty impressive. A 50% to 70% reduction in dry cow antibiotic use.
Which is huge for stewardship.
Huge. Maintained or even improved mastitis prevention if those internal teat sealants are used correctly. And importantly, compliance with emerging antimicrobial stewardship requirements. Those are increasingly becoming a market and regulatory pressure.
Definitely. The big picture here, and what the article truly emphasizes, is the prevention economics that outperform any treatment.
Prevention pays.
It really does. It uses that great analogy. Investments in mastitis control work just like soil health investments in crop production. You put in the upfront cost, sure.
Like buying the culture plates or the sealants.
Right. But those costs are quickly overwhelmed by the yield improvements, or in this case, reduced losses, the long-term health of your land or herd, and the reduction in input costs like fertilizer or antibiotics.
So it's about building long-term health and efficiency in your herd, not just constantly patching up problems as they arise.
Exactly that. It's proactive versus reactive.
And the ROI reality check. The numbers look good.
They look very good. Economic models consistently show that most recommended mastitis control practices are economically beneficial. The return on investment for mastitis prevention is frequently cited in the range of $3 to $5 in savings for every $1 spent.
$3 to $5 back for every dollar in. That's solid.
It is. But it gets even better when you look at specific prevention investment returns. Environmental improvements, think bedding, ventilation, hygiene, can yield a $3 to $5 return per dollar invested. Milking system optimization, just making sure your equipment is functioning perfectly, cleaning properly. That can bring in $4 to $7 per dollar.
Even better.
Genetic selection for mastitis resistance, that longer-term play we talked about with Norway, offers a remarkable $5 to $10 return over time.
Wow.
And comprehensive management programs, the ones that combine all these elements together in a coordinated way, those are the real superstars, potentially delivering an $8 to $15 return per dollar invested.
$8 to $15 back.
That's what the models suggest. These are not small numbers. These are fundamental shifts in your farm's economic outlook.
So to put that into a concrete example for you, the listener.
Yeah, let's make it real. Consider this. A $10,000 investment in a comprehensive mastitis prevention program, carefully targeted to your farm's specific needs and weaknesses.
Okay, $10,000.
That could generate $30,000 to $50,000 in returns, according to these ROI figures.
30 to 50,000 back on a 10,000 investment.
Yeah. Now think about what that means. That's equivalent to the annual profit from adding 15 to 25 additional cows to your herd.
Wow.
But without any of the associated overhead costs. No new barn needed, no more land, no more feed to buy, no more labor for those extra animals.
That really drives home the point. Investing in prevention is not an expense, it's a high-return strategy.
Absolutely. It directly impacts your profitability, your herd's health, and your long-term competitiveness in the dairy market.
So, after all that, after digging through the costs, the resistance, the solutions, what's the key takeaway for a farmer listening today? How do we distill this wealth of information into immediate action?
That's a great question, and it's critical to bring this all back to practical steps they can take, maybe even starting tomorrow.
Okay.
First, let's just recap that initial provocative question we started with. What if the mastitis treatments you're faithfully following are actually costing you more money than the disease itself?
Right, the core idea.
Our deep dive today, fueled by comprehensive research and real-world data, proves this is not just a hypothetical question. For many dairy operations, it's a documented reality.
And the beauty of this, as you pointed out, is that you can achieve immediate cost reductions. You can start today.
You really can by simply implementing minimum duration treatment standards and stopping those visual-based extensions, that habit of treating, until the milk looks perfectly normal.
Just following the label.
Just following the label, or your vet's minimum recommended duration based on the drug. You can immediately save approximately $65.20 per mastitis case just from avoiding unnecessary discard days.
And let's scale that up again. A 500-cow dairy, maybe 175 annual clinical cases.
That simple change alone translates to an immediate annual saving of $11,410.
$11,000. Just like that.
Money that stays in your pocket starting now.
Building on that, the investment in a selective treatment protocol driven by on-farm diagnostics has that remarkable ROI you mentioned.
It does. That $2,000 to $3,000 investment in on-farm culture capability, allowing you to identify pathogens quickly, it can lead to a 60% to 70% reduction in unnecessary antibiotic treatments within just 60 days.
And the payback period.
A swift 2 to 3 months. It's an investment that pays for itself almost immediately by saving on drugs and discarded milk.
And when it comes to those alternative therapies we discussed,
the economics are really compelling there too. Phytotherapy and other non-antibiotic alternatives are showing equivalent cure rates to conventional antibiotics in many studies.
but with dramatically reduced milk discard costs.
Exactly. We're talking about maybe a 24-hour withdrawal period versus, up to 7 days for many antibiotics. This translates directly to a savings of $133 to $133 per case.
While also preserving the long-term efficacy of your antibiotic arsenal against resistant pathogens. It's a win-win.
It really is. A win for your wallet today and a win for your herd's future health.
And let's not forget the power of prevention, that underlying message.
Never forget prevention. Comprehensive mastitis prevention programs consistently yield that $3 to $5 return per dollar invested.
And the selective dry cow therapy.
As we discussed, you can reduce antibiotic usage by 50% to 70% in your dry cows while maintaining or even improving mastitis prevention if you combine it with internal teat sealants for those uninfected cows. It's about working smarter.
That resistance reality check is also crucial here, isn't it?
Absolutely. Remember the concerning 52% penicillin resistance in streptococcal mastitis infections?
Well, that was sobering.
Contrast that with alternatives like geraniol, a plant-based compound mentioned, which showed zero resistance induction even after 150 bacterial generations in studies.
Wow.
Embracing these alternatives and precision diagnostics helps protect your future treatment options, ensuring you have effective tools when you truly need them.
Okay, so to reiterate the 3 critical economic realities that this deep dive has really uncovered.
Let's nail them down.
First, farmers commonly overtreat based on visual milk appearance, leading to massive unnecessary costs. The consequential costs, reduced milk production, culling, and especially discarded milk, dwarfed the direct drug expenses, eroding margins.
Got it. Number 1, stop overtreating based on looks.
Second, the Norwegian model is not just theory, it's proven. Systematic prevention and selective treatment reduced their mastitis costs from 9.2% down to just 1.7% of the milk price. For you, that's like $1.35 to $1.45 per hundredweight improvement.
Huge potential gain. Number 2, prevention and selective treatment works on a massive scale.
And third, alternative treatments like phytotherapy offer proven cost savings that 4 net savings per case, primarily due to vastly reduced milk discard. Research validates multiple non-antibiotic options as effective, even against resistant pathogens.
Right. Number 3, effective cost-saving alternatives exist and are validated.
So what's your immediate action plan starting now? What can listeners do this week?
Okay, actionable steps. Immediate step this week. Take a hard look at your current mastitis treatment costs. Use that verified cost structure we discussed: 31% reduced production, 23% culling, 24% vet drug, 18% discard, 4% labor to calculate your true cost per case.
Know your numbers.
Know your numbers. And crucially, document the average duration you're currently treating for versus the minimum labeled treatment duration for the products you use. Where are you over-treating based only on visual appearance? Quantify it.
Okay, that's this week. What about the next month?
30-day target. Begin implementing selective treatment protocols based on pathogen identification. Even if it's just starting with a simple gram stain or basic on-farm culture for gram-positive versus gram-negative, start making treatment decisions based on some data, not just visual cues.
Start simple, but start using data.
Exactly. Get your feet wet.
And the 90-day goal.
90-day goal. Aim to install that on-farm diagnostic capability if it makes sense for your operation, and thoroughly train your staff on pathogen-specific treatment protocols. Get everyone on board.
And for the dry cow program.
Ensure internal teat sealants are being used correctly and consistently for all uninfected cows in your selective dry cow therapy program. That's fundamental for success. Don't skip the sealant.
Got it.
The revolution in mastitis management, it really isn't coming. It is happening now. The research is there. The models are proven.
So the question isn't really whether you can afford to change.
No. The real question is whether you can afford not to, especially when your competitors could be banking $50,000 or more in annual savings by adopting these strategies.
That's a powerful thought.
We strongly encourage you to start tomorrow. Start by questioning every extended treatment decision. Start demanding diagnostic data before reaching for that antibiotic tube every single time. Your bottom line, your herd health, and honestly, your competitive position in the dairy market fundamentally depend on it.
Great points. And that's probably all the time we have for today's deep dive.
It flew by. For more articles and insights like the one we discussed today, be sure to visit www.thebullvine.com.
And don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your deep dives. Thanks so much for listening.
That's a wrap on today's deep dive into the mastitis treatment revolution that's reshaping dairy economics. The evidence is clear. Farms implementing selective treatment protocols and evidence-based alternatives aren't just saving money, they're building competitive advantages that compound daily. Remember, the question isn't whether you can afford to change your mastitis management approach. It's whether you can afford not to while your competitors capture the $50,000 plus annual savings these strategies deliver. Your next step? Calculate your current mastitis treatment costs using the formulas we discussed, then implement minimum duration treatment standards immediately. This requires zero additional investment, but delivers $65 to $130 in savings per case, starting with your very next clinical mastitis treatment. For the complete analysis behind today's discussion, including detailed implementation roadmaps, cost-benefit calculations, and all the research citations, visit www.thebullvine.com. You'll find the full article, Cut Mastitis Treatment Costs 60%, the $2.3 billion industry secret that's reshaping dairy economics, along with additional resources to help you implement these strategies on your operation. Don't forget to subscribe to the Bullvine podcast for more industry-challenging insights that directly impact your farm's profitability. We're also on all major podcast platforms, so you never miss an episode of the dairy industry's most provocative discussions. Until next time, this is the Bullvine podcast, where we believe the best dairy decisions are made with the best dairy intelligence. Keep questioning, keep improving, and keep those profits flowing. Thanks for listening, and remember, your success is our mission.